What's going on YouTube? It's Teach, back again with another video, and today we are reacting to Trevor Sikkema and PFF's latest 2-round 2024 NFL mock draft. Before we get started, hope everyone enjoyed the Super Bowl. It turned into a pretty good game. You know, it's amazing. You put a fifth quarter into the most important game of the season, and it gets pretty entertaining pretty quick, especially after a little bit of a slow start. But the second half definitely made it a worthwhile watch. And man, Patrick Mahomes, man, I mean, I've been saying since he was 25 when he became the first guy to win an MVP and a Super Bowl MVP by that age. You know, I think he's the most talented guy to do it. I think this is another kind of feather in his cap, basically. But I kind of feel for San Francisco because Shanahan, McCaffrey, Trent Williams, like so many of those guys, I feel like they're good enough players and they're great players, really, and deserve a ring. But ultimately just didn't break in their favor. And really, I think the big conversation point now, I haven't done a whole lot of listening to other people and see what their takeaways from the game were, but I feel like that coin toss decision in overtime is kind of the one that hurt San Francisco there. You know, if you're guaranteed the chance to get the ball, why not see what you have to beat or match? You know, I kind of feel like maybe there you give Kansas City the first leg and see, you know, do I need a field goal? Do I need a touchdown? But oh well, easy to play Monday morning quarterback. And, you know, hey, it was great to see this morning that PFF dropped a new mock draft post-Super Bowl edition. So let's jump right into it. And at the end of this, we'll give out a grade for Sikkema's latest mock. Williams going to the Bears at 1. I do think this is the route they'll take. And then I think they'll probably get a second rounder for Justin Fields. This makes a ton of sense. And there is trades in this. So this is really interesting because I've kind of contemplated this in some of my mocks. What if, like, Dan Quinn wanted to go veteran QB option, like somehow swindled Kirk Cousins to be able to come back to Washington? We'll see if that's the route that Sikkema's going here, but Denver moves all the way up to Drake May. I could see where that's totally his guy, especially if he's not loving the options at 12, like Nix or McCarthy, who I kind of think maybe that Peyton would like, and they'll be kind of in that range. Go up and get your dude and go get your franchise cornerstone. So what do we see? We got out with 3 first-round picks and a second-rounder to move all the way up to 2. I mean, that's that Trey Lance package, you know, and that was from, what, 12 up to 3, and then here we're talking 12 up to 2. So, yeah, probably around that same competition or compensation. But that's a really fascinating move to be made there. And then Jaden Daniels goes 3 to New England. I think in my next mock, I think I'm going to have it come out this week. I'm going to explore the idea of Marvin Harrison Jr. being the pick there at 3, but if I'm honest, I do think New England's got to get a quarterback there. This is a deep enough receiver class. You can get a good guy in the second and third round, kind of double dip there. Quarterback can't say that as much, so I like the idea of going Jaden there. Marv at 4 to Arizona. We've seen this a ton. You know, arguably the best player in this class, and that clear-cut number 1 receiver, I think that makes everyone else in Arizona look better. Then we just got to figure out if they bring it back Hollywood. Odunze to Los Angeles. I think this is Sikkema. I think Sikkema has neighbors ranked higher than Odunze. I think this is him kind of looking at Daniel Jeremiah, looking at Lance Zierlein and some of those mocks and how tapped in they are. And I think they both had Odunze going before neighbors. So it'll be interesting to see how this receiver class kind of is seen by the NFL. I'd be fine with either one of them here. You know, Odunze as a Mike Williams replacement, awesome. Neighbors is a big play threat. You transition Johnston into kind of a yards after the catch guy. I think you still have Keenan Allen do a little bit of everything. I think there's either one of those selections would make that offense a lot better. Joe Alt at 6 to the Giants is something I've toyed around with. You know, it's really easy to, especially now with, you know, if Odunze's on the board, like that becomes a really fun addition because it's like the receiver they don't have. But that being said, you know, you flip Alt over to the right tackle spot. Evan Neal slides inside to play guard. All of a sudden, that offensive line looks a whole lot better. And again, this is a deep receiver class. So if the Giants aren't planning on going quarterback, in a lot of ways, it does kind of make sense to go Alt here, and then go receiver the top of the second round. But I could argue you could do the same thing because there's going to be some good tackles that, you know, proliferate and make their way into the second round. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they value that, you know, first-round talent versus second-round talent in both those positions. J.C. Latham going 7 overall to the Titans. That's fascinating. So, yeah, that's what Latham over Olu, over Talise Fuaga, who I know Sikkema loves, over Tyler Guyton. Fascinating. He does kind of feel like a Tennessee Titan, you know, kind of has that, you know, insane build, tons of play strength, and really good movement skills. So he does feel like a pretty solid fit into that offense. I just think if you're like, I assume that you prioritize Latham over an Olu because he plays right tackle, but at that spot, just I'd go Fuaga over Latham. I'd go Guyton over Latham. If we're going to go upside, I also think Guyton could be a monster. If Tennessee's keeping that same blocking scheme, that could be a huge upside play there. So that's one. That's probably the first one where I'm like, I'm not really in love with that one. Dallas Turner there at 8. Totally think this makes sense. Verse or Turner. In my last mock, I kind of talked about it. It could go, you know, either way. I had Verse going here and then Turner at 11. You could easily flip those two, and I still think it makes an abundance of sense for both these sides. Turner, I'm kind of feeling like it's going to be edge 1. Just because of the edge group, he probably has the highest ceiling. So don't hate this whatsoever. And yeah, and they even talk about it here. There's going to be that third round pick, and then a future third for Justin Fields. That could be another option here. I don't hate that call. And instead of a second rounder this year, maybe it's 2/3. I can see where Chicago's like, let's have more assets over more years. Don't hate that. Neighbors then goes 9. I mean, dude, as much as I would love to see Odunze paired with, DJ Moore, just because one wins with physicality and a 6'3", and the other guy's a little bit smaller, but does what Odunze maybe isn't as good at, yards after the catch stuff. Also, an abundance of deep play speed. Not that Odunze's not a deep threat, but I like the pairing of Moore and Odunze a little bit better, more well-rounded. That being said, looking at what Shane Waldron did in Seattle, taking advantage of the speed that Metcalf has, that Lockett has, and then kind of implementing that vertical-based offense for Geno Smith. And in this mock, we're talking about it's Caleb Williams under center, who, yeah, we know the big plays that man can make deep down the field. Like, don't overthink it. Like, that dude is a playmaker and has probably the best arm talent in this class and can throw as good a deep ball with anybody else in this class for sure. He's definitely in that top 3 conversation in this QB class. And then you give him DJ Moore and Malik Neighbors, just like big play threats waiting to happen. But also like DJ Moore, yards after the catch guy. I think you can use Neighbors some of that. I think you can use him as a sharp route runner over the middle of the field. It's a really fun pairing here. And then maybe in free agency, you just go try to find, Juwan Jennings, someone who gives you a little bit of size, can be more of that prototypical possession guy. That could be a really fun receiving core. Or even kind of go the route of like what JSN basically kind of was for Seattle. You would just put him in the slot, and that's your kind of safety blanket underneath guy. Kind of a really interesting draft there for Chicago. And then J.J. McCarthy at 10. So it's Washington moving back and then still selecting a quarterback. Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, to me, I just can't get over it. Like, just going off my rankings, this would be Washington passing on my quarterback 1 to go select quarterback 6 for the sake of getting, more picks, that future first, the third, whatever. Oh, I guess this is Washington moving back up. So let's see. Let's just quickly review what they ended up getting. So 3 1s in that second, and then they move back up at the cost of a pick swap and then a second, third pick swap. So it's not terrible. You basically still be up 2 future first round picks, and then you basically turn that second and that first trade into a third, so it's not terrible. So, 2 future, first rounders and a third, extra assets, sure, but I just can't get over, passing on Drake May to take J.J. McCarthy, that's just going to be something I can't support. So, it's an interesting idea. It's a conversation starter, and I can give Sikkema a ton of credit for there. I would just really rather Washington go in a different direction. First, then at 11, yep, like I said with Turner, I think this makes a ton of sense. Either order of those guys, 8 and 11, I think those are great spots for him. Jets then, after moving down, take Talise Fuaga. Again, I think Fuaga is a better fit there at 7 than Latham. I think Guyton's probably a better upside play, in my opinion, than Latham. But interesting that he had Latham go so high. Fuaga then falls right into the Jets' lap, which, especially if they bring in a David Bakhtiari to play left tackle, like Bakhtiari, Fuaga then on the right side, AVT stays inside. That's a pretty awesome offensive line. Pretty much a one off season's worth of work, assuming Bakhtiari can stay healthy, of course. That's a huge if. Raiders take Byron Murphy. This is what I had in my last mock, and I feel like this is going to be one you see a ton rest of the way, just because it's the Raiders could use a defensive interior guy. Byron Murphy's getting all this love from the league. Where's the spot where we can put him in the top 15? Well, Raiders make a ton of sense. I don't rule out the opportunity that he might go to Atlanta. I don't know, Grady Jarrett, wrong side of 30, Calais Campbell's old, that could be the spot. That could be the surprise, hey, he goes in the top 10. But if not, here at 13, I think that makes a ton of sense. The Raiders love the fit, love that addition. I think it makes, Crosby that much more potent. I think it makes Malcolm Kuntz that much more special. Olu then goes 14 to the Saints, another pick that I actually had in my mock. I think this would be a dream scenario for New Orleans. You draft Olu Fashanu, plug and play left tackle, you flip Penning over to the right side where he might end up being better either way. Maybe even bring back a James Hurst, believe he's a free agent this year. Saints fans, let me know. Maybe even bring back Hurst and then Penning play some guard for you. Anders Pete's a free agent. That could be another route where they go, or Hurst even plays some guard. So if Olu falls in their lap at 14, I think it makes a ton of sense. You could also definitely go the route of, a Latham, a Fuaga, a Guyton or something like that. And there's also is, depending on that Ryan Ramczyk injury, which, Sikkema calls out right here, this Ramczyk injury. So once we get, clarification on what's going on with him, we'll be able to kind of go moving forward with a better idea of what the Saints want at 14. Terran Arnold, the Colt, very interested by that selection, especially if they lose Kenny Moore. I would love to see Terran Arnold just be that Kenny Moore replacement. I got a feeling they'll bring him back, though. I think more in that Gus Bradley cover 3 defense. That's typically a position where slots have had a lot of success. I think Casey Hayward with the Chargers for a bit. Not that he didn't also play some outside, but I could see where Kenny Moore's that's a good defense for me. And even if they draft Arnold, then he's a really nice compliment to Juju Brents, who had the sick change of direction skills coming out of K-State, but did it at 6'4". Here you get a little bit smaller guy, but again, change of direction skills are off the charts for that cover 3 heavy defense. Read and react, click and close. That's a really interesting idea, and I haven't thought about it really. I've been kind of locked into Quinyon Mitchell there to the Colts at 15, but Arnold, good shout from Sikkema. Fautano at 16. You'll see this a ton of mocks. Like, they need a left guard, clear upgrade of a blocker there. And I don't hate the idea. Actually, the next video on the channel is going to be Fix the Franchise, so I don't want to give away too much. But I think one of those two guards they should keep around. The other one I'm fine with letting walk, and that other one is Phillip Haynes. So let Phil Haynes walk. You draft Fautano to replace him. Boom, there you go. Jax Powers-Johnson at 17. This is what I was talking about in my mock, actually. And it feels like Sikkema and I are almost simpatico. I had the Steelers moving up to 16 to draft Jax Powers-Johnson. And some Seattle fans were like, hey, let's just draft JPJ our own right. But I had others who were excited about the Penix move at 20. If you missed that mock, definitely go back, check it out. Some interesting stuff, I think. But the reason I like justified the trade for Pittsburgh moving up was like, don't rule out that one of Jacksonville or even Cincinnati. Like, Cincinnati could use an upgraded center, and then you move Karras over. Like, don't rule that out. But specifically, Jacksonville's like, they would love Jax Powers-Johnson. So I think Pittsburgh, if they want him, they're going to have to leapfrog Jacksonville. And this is exactly kind of what I was talking about. And I think this would be a great fit. He's an upgrade for Luke Fortner, or you play him at guard. Either way, he'd be a huge impact addition to that interior offensive line. Powers falls in the Bengals' lap. I don't think this happens. I think he's going top 15. Really, and like I've had a lot of mocks where I wanted to send him to Indianapolis. But honestly, especially now with, Kubiak coming over to New Orleans, unless Olu Fashanu's there, I feel like Brock Bowers is going to be a tough one for them to pass on, especially, again, with the San Francisco, pass game coordinator coming over. Like, that feels like a guy who might want an elite tight end prospect in that offense. Not that Jawan Johnson's terrible, but, like, Brock Bowers is just another level. So I even have a hard time getting him past 14, let alone 15 to the Colts, which I totally agree. That's a great spot for him to go, too. So 18 feels like a little bit of a stretch. Layout to lots for the Rams. Had this in my last mock. This is one I think you'll see a ton throughout the rest of the cycle. He's an NFL-ready guy for a team that's looking to win now. And because Aaron Donald garners so much attention, Leatu Latu would be inserted in to this Rams edge spot, and he'd see nothing but one-on-ones. And this guy is such a technician that he's going to tear up one-on-one opportunities, even at the NFL level. I have no doubt about it. Quinyon Mitchell to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like this a good bit, especially with Jax Powers-Johnson off the board. Like, I think the Steelers need an upgrade at interior offensive line. With JPJ off the board, you could probably find, a Zach Frazier in the second round, something like that to make it work. Maybe even a guy in the third round, like a Christian Mahogany, maybe. And yeah, Quinyon Mitchell, with what he did at the Senior Bowl, I'd be totally fine with an outside corner pairing of him and Joey Porter Jr. And then, fingers crossed, we sign the Super Bowl champion that is L'Jarius Sneed to play the slot, because then I'm loving that secondary at Pittsburgh a ton. But Quinyon Mitchell, I'm down for that as a Steelers fan. Tyler Guyton to the Dolphins. This is where I had him going. So again, kind of the same things, similar thinking here. That being said, I did have some Dolphins fans be like, I should stop mocking tackle. And I hear you. Like, once we know what's going on with Teron Armstead, just like the Ryan Ramczyk situation, which is, funny, Armstead, former New Orleans Saint. Once I have clarity on what's going on there, if Armstead's playing, it's probably not a huge prioritization for me. I'd probably go Graham Barton here instead. But I think Guyton's got the goods to be able to play left tackle too. Like, I don't hate this whatsoever. Flip him over and let him be your Armstead replacement in the future. You just extended Austin Jackson. You got your tackle tandem in the future. So I don't hate it, but I totally get where Dolphins fans are like, relax, Armstead, I don't think he's going to retire. Interior offensive line's the bigger issue. And if that's, and I would agree. So if Armstead's back, I'd go probably Graham Barton or Fautano here if he was available, but he's not. Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Eagles. I like this a ton. More length, and just like a plug and play, ready to go guy. That being said, they also have Eli Ricks, who a lot of the same sort of stuff he was playing early on at Alabama, transferred to LSU. Actually, do I have the order backwards there? Now it was the other way around. Started early on at LSU, then transferred over to Alabama. A little bit slow to get on the field there, but like tons of talent, size, not the fastest guy either. So I could see a world where like Philadelphia fans are probably like, Eli Ricks is just, maybe the poor man's version of it, but I won't say that just because, I don't know, it feels a little mean. But especially compared to a guy we haven't seen him play in the NFL yet in Kool-Aid, but you already have an Eli Ricks, who a lot of the same stuff that draws you to Kool-Aid McKinstry he has, so maybe there's a different corner, but Quinyon Mitchell's off the board, Terran Arnold's off the board, so I don't know, it's tricky, but I know a lot of Eagles fans are like not feeling the corner need, so let me know what you would do with that secondary. Are you just fully running it back? Are you adding a safety? Is it something that you would add in the second, third round? I'd love to know kind of where you would prioritize that position. Houston taking Johnny Newton, something we had in our last mock, so I think this makes a ton of sense, especially with the amount of edge talent that's been taken off the board. If they lose Grenard and some of those guys start to slip, I don't hate this. Like, if they lose Grenard and get the chance to replace him with Chop Robinson, like that, Robinson's on the board here. But I'm just, if Leatu Latu falls here, then, you lose Grenard, get Leatu Latu, like, you should jump on that. But if they lose Grenard, like, Chop's an interesting replacement. Braylon Trice could be fun. But I hope they bring him back. He was a really nice player in that D'Amico Ryans defense. I think they can build off of that. let's improve that interior, as opposed to letting Grenard walk and having another hole now open on that roster. Keep Grenard around, draft a Johnny Newton at 23. I think that's the right value for him. Upgrade that run defense while getting another pass rusher in the mix. Cowboys taking Demarius Mims. Damn, Sikkema, my guy. I feel like he copied my test, or maybe I incidentally copied yours. I didn't see it, though. But yeah, I think this makes a ton of sense. He's another guy where I'm hearing some people say, he's got the goods to play left tackle, so that's kind of an interesting thought. We just saw what Dallas did with Tyler Smith, and he was a far better player early on than I ever thought he had any right to do. I thought it was going to be at least a year or two before he started playing some quality football, and I like Tyler Smith a ton. I was like, this is a guy I want to take a shot on. The back half of the first round coming to Tulsa, I think he's got the skills, the traits, the talent to be good. It's just going to take some time. And Demarius Mims, just had he been a guy who played a little bit more college football, I think he goes a lot higher. If he didn't get hurt this year, and was just kind of more of what we've seen out of him, he probably goes off the board before this. But yeah, really interesting project. Could probably start over Terrence Steele right away. If not, you could also take it slow and just kind of ride out with Steele, depending on how much better he plays compared to how he played last year, because it was rough this past season, unfortunately. But if he gets back on track, you don't have to rush Mims on the field. You can kind of wait and see, and then eventually, once Steele's contract gets cuttable, Mims plugs in. Or if you don't get back to Ron Armstead, I don't know. Do you look at the idea of Mims playing left tackle? Be really interesting to see. Packers, Cooper DeJean, again, this is in my mock, so yeah, I won't talk on it too long, but freaky athlete. The Packers almost always draft defense in the first round, and depending whether or not Jair Alexander's there, DeJean has a starting role one way or another, whether it's in the slot with Jair and Stokes on the outside, or he's playing safety, or he's playing on the outside and he's an upgrade over Stokes. Maybe he moves inside, or I just like him in the slot personally, or Jair Alexander's gone. And then DeJean all of a sudden looks like the most talented guy and the best cornerstone piece you have in the secondary. So no matter what happens this offseason, DeJean's got a spot as a starter in Green Bay. Grant Barton to the Bucs. I like this a good bit. Ryan Jensen just retired, so if you think Barton's a center, this could be your opportunity to get another high-level center as a Jensen replacement, or you plug him in at left guard and he's an upgrade over Matt Filer. Either way, he's an upgrade, and I really like the value there at 26. So I think that's a good spot. Damn, Sikkema. With Wiggins going 27, this is crazy. I have never seen a mock that we're grading that is so similar to mine right after I just posted it. And again, it's on the channel. No cap, this is insane. That was super cringe. Sorry, I can't believe I said that. But yeah, Wiggins, I kind of like the idea here, because I was like, what I saw with Wiggins, he, in a lot of ways with his draft stock, the same things I talked about with Nate Wiggins, size, athleticism, getting better year over year. I just kind of thought about it. I was like, damn, I said that a lot of the same stuff about Garrett Williams last year. He just got hurt in the Notre Dame game, and then that kind of just kind of took him off the draft radar, because he had an ACL injury late in the process, didn't get to go to one of the senior combine. He also wasn't a senior, but he didn't get the chance to kind of show out at the combine and put us in big numbers, or have that senior circuit to where he gets to put some great tape on there. But had he not gotten hurt, I feel like we would have had a very similar rhetoric around Garrett Williams that we have right now with Nate Wiggins, who is my outside corner number one. So I like this pairing a ton. Wiggins, Williams feel like similar players. I could see where that's a really nice addition to Jonathan Gannon defense. So I had it in my last mock, so when you hear me talk about it more, just go check that out. Brian Thomas, I don't see a world where he makes it to 28. And would this be receiver 4? That's interesting too, right? Because we had Neighbors go off the board at 9, Bowers at 18. And then you don't have another receiver until 28, which I don't think that's impossible, just because of how good this receiver class is. Once you get past that top 3, I think there is going to be a wait and see period of who's going to be the next guy to go, who's going to be the person that takes wide receiver 4, because then maybe the floodgates open and then it's receiver 5, receiver 6, kind of like the year where Jahan Dotson went 16 to Washington, where receivers were just flying off the board. Olave went 11, and it just kind of created a need where teams were like, oh shit, if we want a receiver, we got to go get him now. But if there is a little bit of a lull post Neighbors or whoever wide receiver 3 is, not impossible, because then teams might be saying, nah, we can get a guy in the second, we can get a guy in the third. And if that works in this case for Buffalo, this is a dream scenario. This is Gabe Davis plus. The long speed even better. The ball tracking, honestly, a lot better. May not be as physical, win with strength, pure strength like Gabe Davis does, but I think Thomas brings a lot more stuff to the table. The only thing with Thomas is the route tree is hitches, comebacks, and vertical, and just go balls. Not a guy that has a whole lot of in-breaking routes, out-breaking routes under his tape. But that being said, I think he's a good athlete. I think he showcases good wiggle, after not that there was a whole lot of yards after catch production, but when I see the ball in his hands, I see a guy who can steer and maneuver and become a better route runner at the next level, kind of like what happened with T. Higgins coming out of Clemson. So I think there's room for him to grow and add that backside dig. If you had that backside dig on top of those other routes, add a slant in there, I think those 5 routes would be just enough for Brian Thomas. specifically in Buffalo's offense. Darius Robinson, I don't want to say too much because you may or may not see this pick in my next mock, but I like this a ton. Guy who can play outside on early downs, then kick him inside to partner up with Aleem McNeil, and that's what allows James Houston to get on the field and be that DPR. Like, I think this is kind of the right guy, right? Robinson, really good run defender, has that, prototypical size. Hutchinson's a little lighter, doesn't play the run as good, so Robinson feels like a natural comparison and a natural running mate there on the edge. And again, passing situation, he moves inside. Houston on one side on the edge, Hutchinson on the other, Robinson, McNeil rushing from the interior. I like it a lot. That's all I want to say. And you'll come back this week for more. Vikings moving up to 30 at the expense of a second and a third. So you move up 12 spots basically from your second round pick, give up a third. I don't hate this whatsoever. Bo Nix in a McVay offense. I don't know if I love that as much. This is very much, McVay, and Kevin O'Connell, they're masterminds attacking that 10 to 20 yard range. That's the hardest part of the field to me, I think, that there is to defend, and that's why I think McVay's got it. And his disciples, for the most part, do a great job attacking that area, which is so hard to defend. So I think Bo Nix is better suited like a Sean Payton. We're going to work underneath, and then we're going to time our deep shots type of offense. But I can see where this still works. And plus, 5 years of starting experience, picked up a new playbook. Actually, even more than that, 5 years of college experience with 5 different play callers. 2 different schools, so the playbook, at Auburn, for the most part, I'm pretty sure. I don't think there was a whole lot of major overhaul and change there. Can't remember if they had a head coaching change. Remind me if they did. And then, Oregon, I don't think there was any massive structure changes there. It was just a different play caller, essentially. But that being said, a guy who's learned a new offense, played with 5 different play callers, being able to plug and play him into Minnesota, assuming they lose Kirk Cousins, not a bad option. And plus, he's a little on the older side, but with the 5th year option, you get to ride out his mid-20s into his 30s. You get to kind of see, as he's entering his prime, is this a guy we want to stick with long term? So kind of an interesting concept. For the cost of a 3rd rounder, moving up 12 spots, get the 5th year option with Knicks, I don't hate it whatsoever. It's one that I haven't really explored yet, but it's a cool thought. Jordan Morgan to San Francisco. This could either be your right tackle, Colton McKivitz upgrade, or he could be a huge upgrade over Aaron Banks at left guard. I'm fine with it either way. But yeah, offensive line, definitely a spot where San Francisco can get better. Kansas City, Keon Coleman. I like the idea of adding another size, speed, freak guy. And that being said, they beat San Francisco, and they figured out enough adjustments. And really, the big adjustment was, Kelsey has to be the focal point of the offense in the second half, and that's what we saw. Those receivers struggled against San Francisco when they ran press. And Coleman's not a sharp route runner, but he has the size, physicality, and the strength to get off of it, at least at the line of scrimmage, and play through it deep down the field. So I'm kind of intrigued. Is this the guy that can counter that man press that San Francisco was kind of giving those receiver fits with? In some ways, I say yes. And then in some ways, I'm not really. I kind of want a guy with a better release package, more assured route runner to where I know, he's going to plant that back foot and have a sharp break and be able to get open and help out Mahomes there. Because, I don't know. I just don't know if they have that guy on the roster right now. So I like a guy with a little bit more certainty as a route runner, but at the same time, size, jump ball skills, physicality. This is the guy who can also play through press just because he is that strong. So kind of an interesting idea. I don't hate it whatsoever. And the Chiefs need a receiver. I think they definitely need to prioritize that, even though they just won the Super Bowl. Panthers take Troy Franklin. I've mocked this a handful of times. Like it a good bit. I think that's a good fit. Slippery after the catch, but also gives you a deep threat there. So like that. Raiders trade up, draft Michael Penix. That's fun. I don't love the idea of anybody in a Luke Getsy offense after seeing what he did in Chicago. So yeah, and especially some of the passing charts out of Chicago. It's I know Fields. The reason I think the Chicago move on is because he's made progress as a passer, but there's still room for him to get better, and he has to grow. That being said, I don't know how much favors Getsy was doing for him, so I'm really worried about what that would look like with Michael Penix. A guy that if Getsy was the issue there and can't really draw passing concepts for a guy that is going to have to win with an offense, with a scheme and with good receivers. I don't know. That could be a troublesome pairing there. I don't know. I'm not in love with that, especially as a Penix guy. That kind of gives me reservations. Then we get to Kingsley Suamataia, the Cardinals. I think that's a good spot for him to go. I just had a mock this last weekend where Latham went 35. The Cardinals could go tackle at 27 for sure, but I also think the depth of the tackle class will linger into the second round. So 35 is a great spot to go get one. Chop Robinson to the Commanders. I've mocked this a ton. I think this is kind of, honestly, I don't want to predict a second rounder in, the middle of February, but Chop's there at 36. I have a hard time thinking Washington's not pulling the trigger on that, especially after they moved on from Sweat and Young. So I like that a ton. Treasures Ennis Rakestraw Jr. I like that a good bit. He's not the biggest guy, and Asante Samuel's not either, But Rakestraw plays with way more physicality. And also inside-out flexibility. I wonder how they would utilize that versus Asante Samuel. I could also see where the next guy off the board is TJ Tampa. I don't know. I kind of would maybe prioritize Tampa just because, again, Asante Samuel Jr. is a little small. That being said, for Tennessee, that would be problematic because Roger McCreary has short arms, played through it, played pretty well last year. But they're a secondary that needs size, too. So I don't know if Rakestraw is necessarily like the dude they're looking to target there. But it is an interesting concept, and I don't hate the order they're going in, but I could also see a world where if you flip it, it also makes sense. Giants, so they go tackle at 6, and then land 80 Mitchell, so they get that big physical receiver, the guy can go up and win it in the air. Insane vertical, a ton of upside there. I think he's showing some as a route runner. He just needs to get more consistent, but this could be, a guy who, instead of it being, 3 to 5, routes per game where it's like, okay, there's something there where, when you really want to time up those one-on-ones, he becomes the guy you go to. Like just a little bit more work. Like another year or two, I think he could be there. So could end up being one of the steals of the second round, really, if he does make it there. Jalen Polk to the Jets. This is a fun concept. My last mock, I was, talking about, the Jets. They could go Brock Bowers at 10 if they figure out the tackle situation in free agency. There's also a world where they do what they did in this mock, trade down, still land a tackle because it's a great tackle class, and it's just, I don't know, it's Tyler Guyton a little bit later on in the middle of the first round, or it's Patrick Paul in the late first, or it's Kingsley Suamataia if they believe in that upside, or someone like that. And then in turn, you get a second round pick to go draft a receiver like a Jalen Polk, get that second receiving threat. Interesting concept. I'll have to remember that for future mocks. Peyton Wilson to Green Bay. Interesting. Packers fans, let me know where you stand on Campbell and Quay Walker right now. Campbell, I assume the pick is made here because Quay Walker, Devondre Campbell's getting up there a little bit in age, so maybe this is like a contingency replacement option. Kind of interesting idea. Kieran Amagaji to the Ravens. I don't hate this whatsoever. He played right guard, then flipped over to left tackle at Yale, so he could be your Morgan Moses replacement if you feel like he can play on the right side again, or you just plug him in at guard, where I think, like, low-key, that's an underrated need for the Ravens. That interior offensive line, other than Linderbaum, could definitely use some work, so I like Kieran Amagaji a good bit there. Falcons take Tyler Nubin. So, kind of a center field safety to go along with Jesse Bates, who's the best center field safety in the NFL right now, so that's a little interesting. And with Raheem Morris coming in, I do wonder what that would look like. Because Bates was in the perfect defense for him with Ryan Nielsen playing a lot of single high and letting Bates be a playmaker. It's going to be a little different with Raheem Morris. And I wonder how Nubin and Bates would fit. I mean, they're both great players, so I'd be willing to watch it. I'd be willing to see how it does play out. And then here we go. Here's the Patriots after the trade down. They draft Dominic Pooney. I think he's going to be playing on the inside. So if they draft Pooney, I'd be curious to see if they bring back Onwenu. Is he going to be one of those tackles? Because this is a team that needs to find that tackle of the future, both at left and right tackle, in my estimation. So Pooney, one of those guards. They also drafted 4 interior offensive linemen between rounds 3 and 4 last year. So I don't know. I don't know if this would be who they're targeting, unless you think he can play tackle, which I'm not sure that's going to be his route. Saints take Chris Braswell. This could definitely be I think this is a good spot for Braswell value-wise. Speed to power guy, and look, Cam Jordan's getting up there in age. Foskey still a TBD, Peyton Turner TBD, but we're kind of in the back half of that rookie contract, so need some instant impact guys, and it's worth taking a shot at Braswell here in the second round. I think and I hope the Saints do prioritize edge still, because they have used prior assets on it, but they haven't gotten the results that they hoped. So don't quit. Keep prioritizing that position because it is one they need to get better at. Colts take JT Sanders. Yeah, I think he's going to go top 2 rounds. I know, I've been high on him this whole process. Tight end 2. I think he should be a second rounder pretty much this whole process all the way through. And there was a time there where he kind of went off the radar for a lot of people. He just didn't have the production that people were thinking maybe preseason. But I think he's a good football player. He's a good athlete, and those guys go pretty high, and he's just a great receiving threat too. So if the Colts don't get Brock Bowers in the first round, JT Sanders is a solid option in the second. Maybe prefer the trade down, but I could also see where, hey, you know what, this is our guy. Let's take him at 46. Austin Booker to the Giants. Really interesting build, 6'6", but 245. So can this guy add 10 more pounds of muscle? If so, I can feel pretty good about him playing full time. And because of his frame, him and Adisa Isaac both have probably some concerns right now about how do they play the run. At least with Booker, you could say he's 6'6" and has a huge wingspan, so it should be easier for him to get a hand on a ball carrier. So don't hate that, or initiate contact at the line of scrimmage, drive a guard back or a tight end back, depending on the formation. Not to get too nuanced here, but yeah, I don't hate it whatsoever. Take the Giants to use another edge. That's really what we're supposed to talk about here. Jags taking Ladd McConkey. I don't hate it, but Christian Kirk's your slot, and he's been far more effective as a receiver at the NFL level playing the slot. Maybe this is a contingency, we could move on from Christian Kirk, not this offseason, but the next one. Ladd McConkey steps in and is an upgrade there. Maybe, but this team might also lose Calvin Ridley, so let's go with Xavier Worthy here. I don't know. I like Ladd McConkey, and I think he should go in the second round, maybe even higher than this. just don't know if Jacksonville's the place I want him to go. Patrick Paul to the Bengals, think this makes a ton of sense too. Like, only question would be like who's flipping over to right tackle. Like Patrick Paul's career left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr. made it pretty clear that he wants to be a left tackle. So we would just need to figure out who's flipping over to the right side. I assume it's the rookie. So a little bit of a trial and error period, I would assume, with Paul there flipping over to right side. But if they feel like he can do it, it's a solid pick. Edgerrin Cooper makes a ton of sense there for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just going to come down to, like, you look at Howie Roseman, what he's done in previous drafts, like first round corner, not something he's previously done. Like a linebacker in the top 50, not something he's wanted to use a prime asset for. But I do hope he shifts his thinking. Corner's a very valuable position. He normally targets the trenches, and those are high valuable positions. But hopefully I'm hoping he opens it up a little bit and says, yeah, corner is a massive need for us. It's a high value target. We're going to do that. And then I know linebacker's not a high position value spot, but they need an upgrade. And Vic Fangio needs good linebackers there in the middle of his defense. So Cooper, with his size and length, actually is a perfect complement for Nakobe Dean, where his knock coming out of Georgia was, one, injuries, and then two, he's a little bit smaller. So I think Cooper's actually the perfect guy to have lined up next to him. Kamari Lassiter, the Rams. The Rams have got to bolster that secondary, so don't hate this whatsoever. His weight's going to be the one thing I want to see. I want to see it 190 or more. Like, to me, 180, that doesn't feel like what I see. Like, and I think he could play at 180, but it's just a little slight. I want to see him add at least 5-10 pounds of muscle. Zach Frazier, this is what I was talking about earlier. The Steelers, if they don't get Jack Powers-Johnson, second round, it's a great spot to go get one. Zach Frazier, he's like already back and walking after his injury, where he like crawled off the field at West Virginia. Crazy moment there, but he didn't want to cost his team. This dude's a gamer. This dude's definitely a gamer, and I love that. So I would be totally content with the Steelers taking him in the second round. Massive upgrade over Mason Cole there. Christian Haynes to the Dolphins. Here you go. You get a tackle and interior offensive line help. And look, if you're Miami, like, don't be shy. Like, double down. Even if Armstead comes back, like, I don't hate the world where you take Haynes here after drafting Barton in the first round. Like, there's a world where you lose Connor Williams in free agency, and then Barton becomes your center, Christian Haynes becomes one of your guards, and then Robert Hunt, if you bring him back, is the other one. Or there's a world where you bring back Williams, Hunt walks, you draft Barton for one spot at left guard, and you draft Christian Haynes to play right guard, where he played his entire career at UConn. Took snaps at both guard spots, though, at the Senior Bowl. So I don't hate it. Like, I think there's going to be mocks I have moving forward where the Dolphins double down on interior offensive line. So don't hate it whatsoever. Eagles draft Braylon Trice. I think he should have gone earlier, if I'm honest, in this mock. But he is the perfect Brandon Graham replacement. Speed to power. This is, like, for years now, I've been mocking a speed to power guy as that Brandon Graham replacement. And instead, Philadelphia just brings Graham back year over year. So eventually, it's going to hit. I think Trice would be the guy they'd target this year for that. Roman Wilson, the Browns, don't hate this whatsoever at the slot. Like, I think Elijah Moore is a little underwhelming. So sharp right runner who can also be a field stretcher, can play on the outside. This would become a really interesting rotation at receiver room. Like, you could have sets where Cooper and Tillman are playing out wide, Wilson inside. You could also have sets where, like, if a team's a little slow in the secondary, Elijah Moore plays in the slot, Wilson's a field stretcher on the outside, plus Amari Cooper doing a little bit of everything. So just adds a lot of versatility and flexibility with what you can do there. Cowboys take Devondre Sweat. You know, it'd be another year where they draft a big nose tackle who is, like, hyped up as, like, the dude to stop the run. You know, Mozzie Smith first round last year, Sweat the second round this year. But I don't think either one of those guys are going to play a full snap share, so they could just have a perpetual, like, never-ending rotation of those two guys. Like, 3 snaps for one, 3 snaps for the other. They're always fresh, and you're always getting the best of Sweat and Smith. Could be an interesting idea. Jonathan Brooks there to the Packers. A.J. Dillon's a free agent, right? Like, I'm assuming that's kind of the thinking for this pick, and I do believe I remember seeing that. So, if so, Brooks is actually a really solid, like, if you want to have that type of running back still in your offense, Brooks is a solid guy to go to, so don't hate it whatsoever. It's just going to come down to the medical for him and how quick he can get back on the field. Adisa Isaac to the Bucs. This is when I had my mock. They need more edge help, and I think Isaac definitely gives them an immediate impact player as the pass rusher. The questions are going to be about his ability to stop the run. Houston takes Tez Walker, probably the biggest loser out of the Senior Bowl. Him or Kalen King, who, geez, especially as a true junior, I didn't think a guy could tank his stock as much as he did this year. That sucks. I'd still take him in the third round, though, because I think there's talent there, and he has shown he can play good football. He's got to build that confidence up. Anyways, we're talking about Tez Walker here. So the one bright side about Tez Walker, yeah, it was a bad week, but he was one of the few guys who got behind Quinyon Mitchell. He just dropped it, you know. But getting open's, to me, the harder skill set than catch the football. We can fix drops. We can't fix you not being able to get open. But he also had one of the fastest GPS times. He might have had the fastest GPS time of any of the receivers. So if you had the fastest time, there's going to be a team that's willing to take a shot on you somewhere in the top 3 rounds. Like, someone's going to be like, yeah, he's fast, but we want 6'2" fast. You know, like, we want that. John Ross got drafted in the top 10 because he could do that. You know what I'm saying? So Tez Walker will have somebody drafted in the first 3 rounds because he is blazing fast. Houston, an interesting idea. And then Nico, Tank Dell, Tez's speed, like, this would be all vertical, all go, all the time. And I don't hate it with CJ Stroud. Jonah Ellis, the Bills. This team needs another edge rusher. And Ellis, I think, like, Leatu Latu's whole moveset's NFL ready, but Jonah Ellis' spin move might be the best best move any pass rusher in this class has. Like, I don't know. I'd have to really sit down and rank and think about it, but he might have the best single move of any pass rusher in this class. And if he can be an instant impact edge rusher for this Bills defense, they'd be well benefited with a guy like that. Brandon Fisk, the Lions, I love this. So you add Darius Robinson in the first round. This guy can play outside on early downs, inside in passing situations, and then you throw in Braden Fisk, who was a real surprise winner out of the Senior Bowl. Showed way more quickness off the line of scrimmage while also being a guy who is big and will stop the run and will clog the middle. Like, huge winner of the Senior Bowl, and really a guy that I'm kind of pissed in retrospect I didn't get him in my 2-round mock this last weekend, because he deserves to be. So the Lions get a nose tackle with more quickness than you would expect. Lee McNeil then can play the 3 tech, and you add Darius Robinson with, again, outside, inside flexibility. All of a sudden, that defensive line looks awesome in Detroit. I actually really like the mock that Sikkema's done here. And I will say, Sikkema's really good about, like, double down on position, like just like the Dolphins thing we were talking about earlier. Like, let's fix this offensive line with 2 picks. Let's fix the Lions defensive line with 2 picks, and I love when he does that, and I wish more teams would do it, but they don't want to put all their eggs in one basket, so I get where they're coming from. Mike Sainristil of the Ravens. I love Sainristil. He's one of my favorite slots in this class. You know, I think DeJean's a slot, and it's a position I prioritize. To me, I think it's going to become the most important position on defense. And I look at Trent McDuffie in the Super Bowl yesterday, and I'm like, yes, like that dude, when he's that good, can change everything. So, anyways, getting off my soapbox, I think DeJean should play the slot. I think Arnold should play in the slot. And then we get to Javon Bullard, Mike Sainristil. Like, those slot 3, slot 4, I think they're both great. Bullard, more of a safety-ish type of background. Sainristil, true corner that just loves to hit. Mike Sainristil's poor man's Devon Witherspoon. So if you liked Witherspoon last year, you should hope your team drafts Sainristil. He's just going to play in the slot only, though. Witherspoon, I think, can play both. Anyways, the only thing would be interesting here is, like, are you taking Hamilton full-time out of the slot? Which I think they could do. I think you could just play box safety and then be your tight end eraser from that spot, as opposed to having to play in the slot. But I like him as a run defender, so I like keeping him as that overhang defender too. So I don't hate Sainristil to the Ravens because he could still do some of that stuff, and then you keep Hamilton in the box. So, I can sell myself on it, but maybe there's another team that could use him a little bit more. Niners take Jarvis Brownlee Jr. See, like, they lost Jimmy Ward to Houston after, D'Amico Ryans got hired by the Texans. He followed his old DC out there, and I think he's been a good player for him. And I thought Jair Brown, who actually got a pick yesterday, would be that Jimmy Ward replacement, slot corners, box safety hybrid. But, they used him some there, but he's also been a Talanoa Hufanga replacement as the kind of downhill safety, and they've had to use Isaiah Oliver in the slot. I think Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is an upgrade at that spot. And, man, this guy had a hell of a Senior Bowl, really bolstered his stock, willing tackler, twitchy change direction skills. That's what we're looking for. The guy who can go one-on-one where it's a harder assignment. A slot's a harder assignment. The receiver can go in either direction. So he's not pigeonholed by having a sideline on one side. So I really liked what I saw from Jarvis Brownlee Jr. at the Senior Bowl. I think he'd be a really nice addition in the slot for San Fran. And the last pick, Kansas City Chiefs take Chris Jenkins. Think they can get a little bit better against the run, and this just keeps Chris Jones clean, assuming they do bring Chris Jones back, which pay that man. There was no reason for him to get a 1-year, $20 million deal as a rework, getting him into the building. Like, pay the man. He might be the best defensive interior player in the league right now. Aaron Donald's still a freak, but him and Jones, like, that gap just keeps getting more and more narrow. Anyways, off another soapbox. Guys, let me know what you think about Trevor Sikkema's latest 2-round NFL mock draft. I liked a ton of these picks. I didn't love everyone, but man, I'll give Sikkema a 90 out of 100. I think he knocked most of these out of the park. And then some of the ones I didn't love, at least there was an interesting thought behind it, like this trade here at 10 with JJ after Washington moves down, then moves back up for a quarterback. Even the picks I didn't love, there was an interesting thought behind it, except for the Latham one. I don't get the Latham at 7. I'm not so crazy about that one. But guys, let me know what you would grade Trevor Sikkema's latest 2-round NFL mock draft. What would you give it, 0 to 100, or as an F grade, A through F? I'd love to know your thoughts down below. But guys, that's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I am signing off.